On your Friday episode of Locked On Raptors, Kawhi Leonard still not officially a Raptor. Are we getting nervous? We'll talk about that, plus Allen Graves being real good in Summer League, and guard play. Are the Raptors better off with Kawhi on the team? If he is on the team, than they would have been without, despite not adding any guards to the roster in the summer. All coming up on today's show.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors. It is Friday, July the 17th, and the aspiration investigation is still not yet complete. I'm your host, your pal, Sean Woodley. Thanks for hanging as always. And on today's show, it's a bit of a bowl of topic soup. We got lots of stuff we're going to dig into today. We'll talk about Kawhi Leonard, the latest or not latest on the pending investigation and trade that is still on hold. We'll talk about Allen Graves wrapping up his summer league in style. We're going to get into guard play. DeMar DeRozan even might come up at some point a little bit later on, and we're going to do it all with our dear pal, Joe Wolfond, who is here to talk about so many things. Wolf, how are you, my friend?
I'm all right. Just sitting here waiting like the rest of us for a resolution that may never come. This
lot of thumb twiddling going on over here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
no,
we'll get into
right.
it.
It's great to be here, as always.
Yeah, love having you, buddy. It's great. Today's show, by the way, is brought to you by FanDuel. The biggest stage in world soccer is here. Let the big goals on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com to get started now. We'll get started, of course, with Kawhi Leonard. You wrote about the ongoing Kawhi Leonard saga over at Raptors in 7 yesterday in your eloquent prose, as you often do. Yeah. I mean, nothing's changed. We're still on Kawhi watch. We're still waiting for the results of the investigation. It could still be months, weeks, who knows, days until we figure out exactly what's going on, what kind of punishment there is for Kawhi Leonard. But for every guest I've had on the show this week, I've just kind of done a general vibe check on how you're feeling about this whole thing. And so we'll do the same with you, Wolf. How do you feel about the Kawhi Leonard stuff as it stands right now, having written about it yesterday? Are you feeling more nervous by the day that this could all fall apart? Are you just kind of in a holding pattern with your emotions? Where are you sitting with this whole thing right now?
Yeah, I think holding pattern is probably the right way to put it, but more apprehensive than I was, I would say, a few days ago, just given recent developments in terms of what's been reported, both about the widening scope of the investigation, but also just the dribs and drabs that have come out about how the Raptors front office has approached this. And I think, look, this could all turn out to be water under the bridge, and we could learn in the wake of everything that they anticipated this and were okay with the risks, but obviously just might as well wait because why not? But I think there's just been a couple of details that have made me feel a little bit less confident in them having had a really firm handle on this before jumping in.
Sure.
And I think, and hearing Adam Silver say that he is hopeful that this will wrap up this summer didn't inspire a lot of confidence.
No.
And if it doesn't, I mean, this is the real worry for me is like, let's say it's September and we're still waiting for the league to, render a judgment in this case. What do the Raptors do at that point? Like training camps are opening and they still don't have clarity on what their roster is going to look like. That's when I think things could get like really hairy if we get to that point and, they still don't know if they're going to consummate this trade or not. So that has me feeling a little anxious for sure. And just, knowing that we're going to be waiting on this for at least weeks, potentially months is not a great feeling.
Yeah, because it's not just like, let's get the results of the investigation out there. It's also what is the response to those results and how do they levy the suspensions or whatever, or the fines or the draft pick stripping or whatever. Like that's going to take some time to iron out too. And it may be, I think Adam Silver made it pretty clear that he's kind of in constant conversation with the Wachtell Lipton folks, and maybe they're sort of coming up with their punishments as they go, and there's a little bit more intel on the inside of the league, and so maybe it all kind of comes in one fell swoop. But that's, I think, wishful thinking as far as expediting the process goes. as far as like, I mean, I still think ultimately this ends up with Kawhi being on the Raptors at some point. That still seems like the most likely outcome here. I don't think anything's changed as far as what is the doomsday scenario, which is the voided contract first and foremost, and maybe a full season suspension. Barring those two things, which seem like the most unlikely outcomes here for Kawhi, still feels as though this ends up in some way, shape, or form with Kawhi on the Raptors. Maybe it's a renegotiated trade package, whatever. Both teams I still think are motivated to get this done, one would think. And I guess the more I think about it, Joe, the more I listen to the likes of Pablo Torre and the folks reporting on all of this, it does feel to me like, and this could totally be cope, but it does feel to me like this ends up mostly being the Clippers that bear the brunt of whatever the punishment is, just because, like, ultimately it was their responsibility to not cede to the demands of Uncle Dennis and Mitch Frankel. And maybe Uncle Dennis and Mitch Frankel are an easy duo to kind of give a lifetime ban to as well for parading around and asking for things that are ridiculous. But I have a hard time squaring how the Clippers being the team to just say, yeah, we'll do whatever you want, ends up being Kawhi's fault. Like, if I tell my bosses I want $1 million a year off book so I don't have to pay taxes, like, or else I'm going to go work for some company that will do that, which there probably aren't any companies that will do that. And they go out and don't call my bluff and say, yeah, sure, here you go. Like, that's their fault for doing that, right? Like, that's not my fault for asking what I can get as a worker. And I know it's a totally, like, it's a nonsensical comparison between, you know, multi-million-dollar athletes and my dumb ass. But, like, I still think it stands to reason that Kawhi being, like, the guy who gets a massive punishment in all of this, because the Clippers didn't do what they were supposed to do, a thing that both the Lakers and the Raptors did do, by the way, which was report the demands that Uncle Dennis was asking of them to the league. And I think, you know, there was some sort of probe into that at the time. Like, to me, it still just comes back to Clippers wrong here. And maybe you could deem voiding Kawhi's contract as a punishment to the Clippers as much as a punishment to Kawhi, because it hamstrings their ability to trade him for stuff. They lose the guy who's currently under their employ for nothing. So maybe that's where a Clippers punishment also, you know, it involves Kawhi. But I keep coming back to, it just feels like it's the Clippers who are in the wrong here, if all of the stuff that's been reported amply by those who have been on this for over almost a year now does come, in fact, you know, to light in this investigation. I don't know. Thoughts on that?
No, I agree with that. Ultimately, when it comes down to cap compliance, the teams are the ones who are expected to comply with that.
Yeah.
And a player can come in and ask for, I guess, whatever they want. And to your point, yes, it's on the team to say, no, we're not going to do this because that's against the rules. But I think because Joe Smith is really the one point of comparison that we have for a situation like this, and look, that was 25 years ago, so who knows whether it will be dealt with in the same fashion. And also the situation was not exactly apples to apples, but in that situation, it's like, yes, the team was heavily punished.
Yeah.
But Joe Smith, for essentially participating in this cap circumvention scheme, had to bear the brunt of some of the punishment as well, because he knowingly broke the rules. And I think, as much as I am on board, I think the heaviest blow needs to fall on the Clippers, assuming that they are found to have done what they're accused of doing.
Right.
But I don't think it's like beyond the pale for Kawhi to take some of that punishment as well, because he was clearly an active participant and, you know, in many ways spurred on this cap circumvention in the first place. So I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he got off scot-free.
Yeah.
But I also wouldn't be shocked if they voided his contract, given what we know.
Yeah, the Joe Smith thing too. I mean, the sort of the thing that's been brought up there in you know how this is talked about is like there was literally like a piece of paper that said we did crimes that they uncovered in that investigation. And DeMaurice Smith was on Pablo Torre's podcast yesterday, is the former NFLPA head, and he was kind of alluding to the fact that like nowadays people are a lot better about like not writing down the post-it note that says we did crimes, and it has to be there's like a way higher burden of proof on a lot of this stuff. And so maybe like it could very well be a technicality that gets Kawhi off scot-free here as well. We're just left to speculate in the meantime. I don't know. Well, any other thoughts on this? Yeah. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
the last thought I have on it is just to say, because I have seen a lot of people expressing frustration that, the Raptors are going to essentially be punished for the Clippers' wrongdoings. And I would just say to that, look, like the Raptors didn't have to do this.
Yeah.
They chose to trade for a player who was the subject of an active NBA investigation. They, at the time, accepted the risks that came along with that. Now they're choosing to push those risks down the road, or at least mitigate them by waiting to see what happens. But they've already gone some of the way down the road on this, right? Like they brought Kawhi to Toronto, had him sitting front and center at Kyle Lowry's retirement press conference. Like he's at Summer League games watching the Raptors play in Las Vegas. And Grady Dick and Brandon Ingram have essentially been folded into the Clippers ecosystem. And I think to undo that, to try to put that toothpaste back in the tube, would be a big challenge. Not to mention the fact that like the offseason is over. Like there aren't a lot of other paths available to upgrade the roster if they have to unwind this. This was their big move. So I think that's why getting all these details about, well, they were comfortable with the risks until they got on the trade call and the NBA really emphasized to them what was going to happen here.
Yeah.
That's the part that, maybe more stuff will come out about that and we'll understand why they were comfortable one day and not comfortable the next. But that's the part that I'm still having a really hard time squaring, because you proceeded as if this was a done deal. Yeah. And now you're saying, whoa, let's wait. But whether something materially changed or not, it feels like maybe they didn't understand the risks well enough when they decided to pull the trigger, at least on agreeing to the trade.
Yeah, maybe that's on them. Maybe that's on the league for being vague in their communication of it. Like we're just maybe never gonna know, until the book is written 10 years from now. It's
and I think we're never gonna know because there's one scenario that reflects really poorly on the league and one that reflects really poorly on the Raptors.
Right.
And so I don't think you're gonna get a consistent story.
Yeah.
When you're talking to each of those two parties about what really happened.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're not going to get the beat by beat of the texts between Bobby and Adam Silver on June 28th before this all came down. I mean, so still holding pattern. We'll see. Again, I'm still operating under the assumption and sort of thinking about the team under the assumption that Kawhi will be on the team, and then we'll reckon with that if he's not and everything gets undone. But let's continue on with our little rundown of stuff we got here today, Joe, as we get into Alan Graves, who finished up Summer League strong on Thursday night, and looks like a player, man. We'll get to that coming up in just 1 second. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. And look, World Cup final coming up this Sunday on the world's biggest stage. FanDuel is changing the game because sometimes your player gets subbed off and your bet goes with them. Not anymore with FanDuel Super Sub. If your player gets subbed out or your bet stays in, your bet stays in. That's right. If your player leaves the match, your bet continues with the substitute who came in for them. So you're still in it until the final whistle. In matches like this coming Sunday, anything can happen. And now you can go to the you can go the distance. That is, let there be goals this summer on FanDuel. Maybe you are someone who's been watching Spain play and they've got super sub Mikel Merino coming in. You just want to make sure you get some of that Mikel Merino action. Maybe your first pick to score a goal in the game is Mikel Oyarzabal, who's been a really fun striker, but has given way to Mikel Merino late in these games. If you want to take advantage of both Oyarzabal and Merino, then maybe this is the way to go and play for the World Cup final. Let there be goals this summer on FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON to get started now. Back at it here with Wolfond as we, poke through a few different things here on your Friday show. Just a heads up, by the way, I'm going on vacation next week. I will have a show on Monday. We'll do a little Summer League recap, talk a little more in depth about not just Alan Graves, but Nate Biddle, Jaden Bradley on down the line. And then we have a wonderful guest who is the winner of the Locked On Raptors Fantasy League, Nico. We're going to talk to him about his Raptors fandom, play some stupid little games, all that good stuff on Monday as well. And then Zulfi Sheikh and Vivek Jacob are going to tag team to fill out the rest of the week. So you have that to look forward to Tuesday through Friday. All right, Joe. Alan Graves finishes up Summer League looking real good. 17 points, 7 boards, 3 assists, 50% from 3, 100% from the line, 50% overall. There's a couple of steals and blocks in there. Just like looking like a dude who knows how to play hoop. I thought a lot of this stuff would look good in Summer League for sure, just because, a guy who kind of knows how to play stands out against the backdrop of a lot of guys who maybe don't so much know how to play in Summer League. But really encouraging stuff nonetheless. And I guess looking forward to the season, it's always smart to temper your expectations for rookies, but I think at the very least, what he showed in Summer League suggests that he's going to get a real shot to crack the rotation pretty early on. And if the 3-point shooting holds up in particular, my goodness, that's a very helpful basketball player to have as like your 9th man. Feelings on Alan Graves after his Summer League exploits?
Yeah, I think it went about as well as you could have hoped. But I think there are still the questions about whether it will translate when the game is much faster.
Sure.
Because a lot of what he does still is quite slow. And the question with him coming in was always like, okay, brain moves fast, body not so much.
Right.
And can the former make up for the latter? And we've seen a lot of players who have been able to do that. Marc Gasol was not a particularly fast-moving player, but his brain moves so fast that he always managed to be in the right place at the right time anyway. And there's a little bit of that with Graves, and obviously like the shooting to me is going to be a big swing skill. And again, boy, does it take a long time for him to load that thing up, right? Yeah. So if he's not getting, these sort of wide open standstill threes, which I do think defenses will, at least at the beginning, be willing to concede to him, then what does that look like? And is he going to be able to access that skill in the way that's going to really make it pop? The pick and roll ball handling reps were really interesting to me, and maybe that was the thing that I didn't quite expect. He looked pretty comfortable, pretty proficient doing that. I know there was a play in last night's game that Samson clipped where he got blitzed and made like an escape dribble, strung out the trap, looked off the tag, and hit Biddle for a layup, which is like stuff like that is really impressive.
Yeah.
And I compared him to Kyle Anderson before Kyle Anderson was a Raptor. And it always sort of seemed like in terms of like defensive playmaking instincts, but also like the idea of being a quick processor who's also kind of slow. And that's another area of overlap with them, I think, because Kyle Anderson throughout his career has been a really good pick and roll operator. Yeah. Despite being like a 6'9" power forward. And I saw some of that with Graves as well. So if that's something that he can do at the NBA level, I think that's pretty exciting. And ultimately, if he is Kyle Anderson with a 3-point shot, that's a really valuable player. And I think there are other ways in which I think his ceiling is higher. But even if he's just that, I think that's a great outcome for the 19th pick in the draft. So I come away feeling pretty optimistic, but I do still want to see what it looks like at NBA game speed.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like it was the question going from the WCC to Summer League, and in Summer League is just like a totally different ball game from the actual NBA. I do tend to I'm pretty bullish on guys who just like do process really quickly and can kind of overcome athleticism issues with that. And so I feel pretty good from what I've seen from Graves that the translatability is not going to be as big as a concern as it maybe felt like watching him play at Santa Clara. And yeah, the 3-point shooting, obviously, right? Like you mentioned the kind of slow release on it. It is pretty laborious, but if the fact that he's got a little bit of a handle to him that I didn't really see for him, like I that was kind of like the reason I wasn't a huge Graves guy leading into the draft, which is like, what does he do with the ball in his hands when the shot is not there for him? And if he's going to get run off the line eventually because that slow thing goes in at a 42% clip, then, there are ways to kind of keep defenses honest with the handle too, because like it seemed a lot tighter than I expected. There is certainly that slow-mo element of kind of keeping defenders a little confused because you're just at a different speed and cadence to the normal guys that you're defending. And when you're tall and can kind of make the reads over the top of the defense, like that one possession you alluded to, like you can get away with some stuff with that too. So yeah, I feel pretty encouraged as far as how the rotation shapes out for the Raptors going into the season. I do feel like he comes in probably as like the leader in the clubhouse to be like the ninth guy behind your Shed, Jacoby, Colin Murray-Boyles sort of lead trio off the bench. Obviously, Jamison Battle will have a say in there. Maybe Kyle Anderson, maybe someone else, maybe Nate Biddle. But like, I don't know. I am at the point where I have no issues with throwing him into the fire immediately, seeing if he can hang, see if he can be like a lineup completionist guy who, you know, just kind of makes lineups sing and work because of the shooting, because of the playmaking, because of the help defense and all that stuff. And just kind of rolling with it from day one, understanding that like no rookie is going to be Colin Murray-Boyles from day one because Colin Murray-Boyles is a damn freak. But I think Alan Graves just kind of does enough stuff as like an additive, helpful role player, theoretically, even with the athleticism questions, that I have no qualms about just having him be the number 9 guy out of the gate and playing him regularly until he proves that he's not up to it. What about you?
Yeah, I think so. And I think one thing you didn't mention is the rebounding, which I do think is going to translate because he just clearly has an incredible nose for the basketball. Yeah. And he's just one of those guys who has that sixth sense for rebounding angles, knows where the ball is going to go, and does an incredible job of pursuing the basketball and coming up with it. So to me, that's going to be there, and that will fit in with the team's identity in terms of, you know, having a possession advantage through turnover generation and turnover suppression. And then also, I mean, they had that last year, but they didn't have the advantage on the glass. And I think there's a chance of Graves coming in right away and impacting them in that aspect of the game. So, I think at least to start out, based on what we've seen so far, I mean, maybe there'll be stuff that happens in training camp that'll swing it one way or another. But I haven't seen that much to suggest that he's not going to be an NBA player right from the jump who can contribute. Yeah. So I do think with the handle, that's one thing I'm curious about because, I mean, for all guys that size, it's going to be a higher handle.
Sure.
And I agree it's a little tighter than maybe I expected it to be. But again, NBA game speed with high-level pesky defenders who are going to be poking and prodding at that dribble. Does that hold up? I think that's going to be interesting as well. But to your point, like at the start, if it's just he's getting run off the line because he's proven that he can hit these standstill threes, he doesn't necessarily have to be like dusting guys off of the bounce or running a ton of pick and roll. He's just got to be able to attack closeouts and make decisions on the move, which he's proven very capable of doing.
Yeah, I'm into it, man. You know, the battle between Alan Graves and Grady Dick for those ninth man minutes, it's going to be a movie, man. I'm not going to speak that into the world.
Don't put that on me.
Poor Grady Dick, by the way. I mean, he'll be fine, but you know, it can't be the best being in this much limbo as far as where you're playing next. We're going to come back and decide here, Wolf. But one last thing. I just wanted to comment on Graves. That dude's got bastard hands, man. Just like in on everything. Like, yeah, he fouls a lot. Don't care. Like it's the dig downs. He's going to get like a lot of like Fred VanVleet ass steals, I think. He's super fun defensively too. Just like a really, really smart in position all the damn time defender. Anyway, we're going to come back. We're going to talk about guards, which is a thing you and I have talked about so much on this podcast over the last, 8 to 12 months. And it's been a little bugaboo of ours as far as the Raptors team building philosophy for quite some time. Is it still a big issue with Kawhi Leonard and all of his very large man, but also having guard skills on the table? We're going to get into the state of the Raptors guard situation and whether Kawhi changes the dire need that we felt they had at the position coming up in just 1 second. Wrapping things up here with Joe Wolfond, Raptors in 7. Go check his stuff out over there with our pal Vivek Jacob. It's a damn prolific newsletter with great stuff, like seemingly every day, especially now that Vivek's done watching stupid soccer or whatever. Okay, so Wolf, guards. We've, again, talked plenty about it on the show, the seeming sort of fading of the position by the front office for many, many, many years at this point. It was in many ways the downfall of Vision 6-9 1.0, in that they just didn't have enough guard play to kind of tie the whole thing together with the big wings they had. Kawhi is different than the big wings they've had in that he brings pull-up shooting juice to the table, in that he has a tight handle that he can sort of create offense for himself and to an extent others just through his sheer domineering force of will on the ball. I do think his arrival makes the lack of guard play, sort of traditional guard play, a little bit less of like a dire concern for the team. Obviously, like injuries happen to Emmanuel quickly or whatever, then certainly it becomes a big old problem again. But considering Jamal Shed hopefully has some sort of offensive, step forward in him, we don't know, we'll see. But I'm hopeful and think there's reason to believe he will have a better than 49% true shooting going forward. Considering quickly, and I think is sort of lessened burden of creation within this scheme, and most notably the pull-up shooting that Kawhi brings to the table. I feel like I'm less like itchy when I look at the guard situation and thinking, man, they could use something else here. What about you? Are you feeling a little more sort of at ease about the guard room, or would you still like to see them go and add some more dudes who can just dribble the dang ass basketball to the team?
I mean, I'm never going to complain about getting more guys who can dribble the basketball.
Sure.
But yes, I don't think I've ever been prescriptive about team building in saying, you need this type of position, this specific type of player to win.
Yeah.
But I think we've been pretty consistent about the types of skills that the Raptors have been lacking, that they really need
100%.
in order to be competitive. And I think Kawhi brings a lot of those things, in spades. Like just the ability to self-create, to hit pull-up threes, as you mentioned, to have the ball in his hands a lot and almost never turn it over. Like that's going to be a huge boon, I think. And I do feel like for Quickly, he ought to be in a role that suits his skill set extremely well. Like I'm optimistic that he can really thrive in that role where he will have the ball in his hands some, but he's also going to get a lot of opportunities to operate as that off guard who can really be a chaos agent away from the ball. And I think that, just considering the type of on-ball gravity that Kawhi has, the type of on-ball gravity that Scotty Barnes has, especially based on what we saw in the playoffs, if he's going to be able to score like that inside the arc, like all of that is going to just open up more and better opportunities, I think, for Quickly to be, I think, the combo guard, the hybrid guard, the gunner that we have always wanted him to be. And so I think that can work. And if you can get by offensively without small guards having to stir the drink, then you can reap the benefits of that at the defensive end of the floor. And I really do think that is part of the vision. Is like, we're just not going to play small players. And even Quickly is, for a point guard, is not super small. He's like 6'2", 6'3", with a 6'9" wingspan. Yeah. And I think they're going to find ways to sort of hide him defensively. Not even hide him necessarily, but just put him in positions to do what he does best, which is be a scheme defender who rotates really well and gets in passing lanes and really knows where to be and can use his length to his advantage. And if you're hiding him sort of on the lower half of the defense, you're pre-switching to keep him out of ball screen actions, you're not making him defend as much at the point of attack because you have all of these wings who can do that, then I think they're going to be really strong defensively, even with him on the floor. And by the way, every season of Quickly's career, his teams have been better defensively with him on the floor. So I don't see that as being an issue at all. And I think they have enough offensively to, again, assuming Kawhi is a Raptor, to make up for the fact that in terms of traditional guard play, they're still lacking. But there are things that they don't have in terms of like they don't have a guy like a water bug type of ball handler who can just get wherever he wants on the floor with the handle. Kawhi isn't exactly that. Like a lot of his forays with the ball are just going to lead to like pull up mid rangers.
Right.
which is fine because he's going to hit
Yeah,
half
they're
of
going
them.
to go at like 55% or whatever the hell. Something ungodly. Yeah.
But like the ability to sort of create rim pressure, to really like collapse the defense as a dribble driver, I think that's still something that's lacking, although you get that from Jamal Shed. And if Jamal Shed can like finish more of his drives than he did last season, I think that would be a benefit. But I think they have enough of the right ingredients, I guess. And we were clamoring for a guard, and then Kawhi, I think, brings enough of those guard skills to assuage whatever concerns we had about the lack of shot creation.
Yeah, I think the like skill complexion of the long wingy dudes they have on this team compared to like the 2022 era is just like night and day. In that there's way less overlap. There's stuff that meshes. You have guys who can shoot the basketball. It's I think they're set up for more success in Vision 6.9 2.0 for sure. Quickly, I think I think he's gonna be a lot of fun to watch this year. A guy who, it's not like a perfect comparison because he's smaller, and I think Quickly has more playmaking chops than this guy, but a guy who I loved watching in the playoffs, and I think as far as just like the off-ball jitterbug, sort of lethal and ready to take a million threes whenever they come to him, that stands out to me is Devin Vassell. Like, can he play like Devin Vassell did for the Spurs when they were kind of at their peak, and he was really just doing that off-ball stuff? He was just this jitterbug of relocation and movement threes, and again, different types of players. Who did you think I was going to talk about? I don't think
I thought you were talking about Jacoby.
Oh, right.
Who, in the and look, Jacoby. Maybe Devin Vassell is not a terrible comparison for him, but like Devin Vassell can like do stuff with the ball in his hands in the way that Jacoby Walter very much can't.
Yeah.
But I think he'll be important to this equation as well, because especially the second half of last season was just a flamethrower, as a catch and shoot guy. Yeah. And like you would love to see him be able to do more attacking closeouts. But even if he just sort of like can build on what he did last year and in the playoffs as both a defender and a shooter, I think that's an important part of this equation. Vassell's an interesting comp for IQ though. Like he's bigger, and is more of like a mid-range demon, but but I think in terms of role, it's it makes some sense, and obviously, we didn't get to see Quickly in the playoffs last year, and his previous forays into the playoffs didn't go especially well for him. So I am curious to see if he can sort of settle into a role that makes sense for him in both the regular season and the playoffs. Like, can it be resilient, what he's able to do and provide for the team?
Totally. A guard who is out there, a guard, wing, whatever we call him, I don't know, old sage. DeMar DeRozan, his name just keeps coming up. Mark Stein has called the Raptors a quote-unquote confirmed bidder for his services. We've talked a little bit about this on the show already. I am a sucker for nostalgia as much as anybody. I think there's something to the idea of DeMar can go get some buckets for you, and to get through the regular season in particular, it's not a terrible thing to have, just like in the kitty as an option. I find it to be kind of a strange fit stylistically, sort of vibes-wise, with Kawhi also on the team in this scenario, and the I don't know. It just seems off to me a little bit. It seems like nostalgia for nostalgia's sake in the way I don't think the Kawhi thing is. But I could be talked into it because I'm a mark for this kind of thing. What about you, Wolf? Are you at all enthused by the idea of DeMar DeRozan coming home and playing 16 minutes a night off the bench and definitely being very, very happy about it?
Can I just say first that the idea of them being a confirmed bidder is so funny? Like,
so funny.
I bid one veteran minimum. Like, okay, confirmed bidder here. Yeah. Like, okay.
We will give you 17 minutes of action. No, we'll give you 18. Do I have a 19 anywhere?
Yeah. I just think. So I think the vision is that Kawhi's going to miss some games, whether he's being load managed, whether he's suspended, whatever it is. And it would be helpful to have a player like DeMar as a regular season innings eater in those situations to take on some of the shot creation burden, make a bunch of middies, keep the offense afloat to some degree when Scotty's not out there. I get it. Whether he's going to be happy with a 16-minute-a-game role is, I don't know, but I also just think when the team is whole, he doesn't fit their identity really on either side of the ball.
Not at all.
And I think it gets into, like, you can have one guy who is operating in a different sort of system, right? They had that with Ingram last year where they had the, like, team offense, and then there was sort of, like, the Ingram offense that was a little bit siloed from that. And I think that created a lot of friction, especially in terms of, like, the pace they wanted to play at.
Yeah.
And now they're going to have that with Kawhi, and it's going to be easier to stomach because Kawhi is just way better at that stuff than Ingram is. But to have two of those guys who are sort of going to interrupt the flow and freelance and sort of do their own thing a little bit, that to me gets tougher. And I just don't know if you want to sort of throw a wrench into the offensive system like that if the payoff is not going to be substantial. And I don't know DeRozan can still get a bunch of buckets and do it at, probably above league average efficiency. I think it was at
almost
like 59%
60% true shooting last year. Yeah.
60%. So that's, there's something to be said for that for sure. And he's going to get to the free throw line a ton.
He was also playing on a team that like wasn't a basketball team, right? Like, and I don't know how to square that. Like, do you expect, like, would he be more inclined to like blend into a role within the Raptors because he's playing real basketball again, or are the bad habits of the Kings just like fully baked in? Like, I tend to probably lean towards the latter, considering he hasn't really played on a serious team in 4 or 5 years. But again, you squint.
I can see it offensively. I can see it making some sense. Defensively, it's just going to be tough.
Yeah.
And then, you're going to wind up in a situation where I don't think you're going to want him to be playing many, if any, minutes in the playoffs. And does that become, I don't want to say a distraction, because I think so-called distractions are often overblown, but does that become uncomfortable if you have to excise him from the rotation? Is he going to be okay with that? Is he going to pout, or is he going to be a good soldier, a good cheerleader? That's sort of what I'm thinking about as this reunion keeps getting brought up, is like, is it actually going to end well for either party? And do we want that to be, as it is, our last memory of DeRozan in a Raptors uniform is him getting himself tossed from game 4 of a sweep against the Cavs as like the best regular season in franchise history went up in smoke. So it's not like people have the greatest taste in their mouths, I guess, in terms of how he left the first time or was pushed out the first time. But I think, you could bring him back, and people, look, I would get on board immediately. I would. Like,
of course.
I'm a sucker
I've brushed my teeth plenty
nostalgia,
since 2018. Like,
but I do think there's a chance that it just goes sour, and the fan base turns on him, and it's not really the happy reunion that everybody is currently imagining.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would assume that if it does actually happen, if DeMar were to come back, the Raptors have laid like pretty clear expectations out of like, this is not Super Fun Times Kings Ball where you get to do things and there's no stakes. Like, you are going to take a lesser role. You may find yourself out of the rotation at some point. If you're cool with that, then great. And if he's not, then he probably signs with the Heat and starts for them. Wolf, anything you want to plug?
Raptors in 7, newsletter I'm doing with Vivek Jacob. Just put out a piece about Kawhi and this whole quagmire and trying to make sense of it. We'll have more stuff coming throughout the offseason. Probably going to write about Alan Graves at some point. But go check us out there. Subscribe if you want to get our content straight to your email inbox. I think we're doing pretty good work.
You are. I can confirm. It's great. As a subscriber who gets them emails, great emails. Love them all. We're going to leave it there. Thanks so much. Follow, subscribe, rate, review. Join the Discord. Link in the description of the podcast. Back on Monday with me, as we'll do a Summer League recap and talk to our pal Nico to award his prize as the winner of the Fantasy League earlier this year. And then the week is taken over by Zelfi and Vivek as I go on vacation and read some books or something. God, I got to read some books. Anyway, thanks so much. Follow, subscribe, rate, review if I didn't already say that. I think I maybe did. Anyway, bye. Have a good one.